Now let's look at the second test, guess feature. Let's look at the test first. Okay, so when we talk about this feature, this user story that allows user to make a guess and then always do the right thing, there can be a number of scenarios, right? So you can have as many scenarios as possible. In this case, we have 4. We may need more or we may need less. Let's see what they do. So we have one scenario that tests when a user guesses the correct letter once, then our application should do the right thing. So if we start a new game with a word, I'm going to see how this can be done. And then when user make a guess, and then that guess should appear in the view in this element. Okay, so this gets a little technical because we're using some HTML tag names, but this is still pretty understandable, right? If we start a game with a particular word, we make a correct guess, then we should see that in the user interface, in the page. And then the second scenario is slightly different, right? If we make a correct guess and that letter appears multiple times, then we should see that letter multiple times in the UI. Okay, and similarly, if it's incorrect guess, we should see it on the UI but in a different location. And if we guess it incorrectly, well, if the so if we have multiple correct and incorrect guesses, then we should see something else. So for example, if the word is full bar and we have guessed differently, and then this is the desired output. Okay, so this is should make sense based on the logic of the game. Okay, now let's run this test and see what we get. Okay, well, everything is red, so this is expected. And then the first error is that no route matches new. Okay, well, let's see why that is happening. In our guess feature test, we have this statement, I start a new game with a word. Okay, let's look into that a little bit. That we have a game step, we have a step definition that matches that. You can start a new game with a word. Okay, so this is done using something called a stub. Okay, this is the tool, it's a webmock tool that allows us to intercept a request, a HTTP request, and replace it with something else. That's pretty interesting. So it will intercept this request to this URL and mock the response to that request. So when our app sends a post request to this URL to get a random word, instead of letting it to get a random word, we return a word specified by the user in the test. So this is how we can test this application that has some randomness involved, right? So we can't really let it get the random word because we won't be able to define what we would expect. So this is a way to get around that, to use a stub instead. Okay, and as you can see, when we go there, we always visit new. Okay, this is different from that home page, and that is exactly why we get this error, because when we visit new, we're triggering a GET request to this new URL. But in our route, we don't have a route that matches that URL plus method. So we need to add that. Okay, so we'll add that, and we know where this route should map to. It's gonna be whenever we request issue a GET request to the new URL, we want to start a new game. We have action already defined. It's games .new, so it's the same as root. Okay, so let's give it a try. Okay, now we are passing one step. We're able to start the game, and then, but we get this new error: no route matches post on this get a guest URL. Okay, why is that happening? Well, if you look at that, we are executing this step. I press on I guess R. Right, so if we look at that step, when I guess something, we'll fill in a field with some information, the letter, and then we click on guess button. Okay, let's see what that guess button does. So I'm gonna go to the app that is running our development environment, so it should have the latest code. Now we can go to new and give us this interface. We click on new game, it works. We have this show action defined, and it's associated with a view that shows the state of the game. We don't have any wrong guesses. We haven't guessed anything yet. And then when we make a guess and click on guess, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to fail. It's because in this guess form, it's a form, we're submitting a letter to this guess URL with a post method. Okay. It's going to fail and give us exactly the same error message. Well, that is because when we send that request to our app, we don't have a route that defines the mapping between the request to an action. Okay, so according to our slides, we need to add this route. Okay, so add it. Let's run the test again. Okay, now we get a different error. It says it's not complaining about the route anymore. It complains that the action guess could not be found in the game controller. Okay, well, that makes sense because we don't have it. So we're using the test to drive our development. So we run the test first, and if it fails, and we decide what we need to add to the application to just write enough code to make it pass, so we don't write unnecessary code. Okay. According to our note, we need to add this guess method. Let's take a quick look at the guess method. We should load the game first, so we have a variable called game from the session. This is the mechanism we use to kind of persist the game object across multiple requests. So we deal with the same object for the same user, and then as you can see, we take what's in the parameter, what's sent through this request, and we turn it into a string. And then if it's nil, if it doesn't exist, then we use an empty string. And then we use our game logic. We process the request using our game logic, and then we store the game, and then we redirect to show. Okay, at this point, keep in mind that we have this game already loaded. So we should have an instance variable called game, right? And then this game will is available to the view automatically. So in the show method, we should be able to show the current state of the game. Okay, well, let's rerun the test. Okay, yeah, now our test passed because we have wired up our application and we have this logic implemented. Let's test it manually here to give us some confidence that it's actually working. Yeah, so now we can actually make guesses. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that part is working. Our implementation for this story is complete, right? Because we have this test that describes the behavior of application for this particular user story, and we were able to run it and pass it. So now we can accept this feature. Right? We have an application. It's not complete yet, but now it does has this correct behavior. It allows user to make guesses.